This week, the Colts travel to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers in Week 9 of the 2025 NFL season. And today on Steelers Talk, we've got our Week 9 preview. Big game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Got to get back in the win column to avoid their third straight loss versus the number 1 seed in the AFC. This Sunday, we will be going live on the channel starting at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. An hour of pregame coverage followed by live play-by-play and live reaction to the game itself, followed by extensive post-game coverage as well. You guys know the drill, man. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already to never miss any of our videos or live shows here on Steelers Talk. We're now over 100,000 subscribers on this channel. We are the largest individually run Steelers news program anywhere on YouTube. So if you guys want your daily dose of Steelers news and rumors, click that subscribe button right now. So let's get into this week's preview, man. The Colts coming into town red hot, 7-1, the number 1 seed in the AFC, taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers coming off of 2 straight losses last week, losing to the Green Bay Packers at home on Sunday Night Football, trying to avoid going down to 500 after starting the season 4-1. You guys can take a look at what the Colts have done so far this season. And honestly, not the most difficult schedule in the world. They've already played the Titans twice. Okay, they might be the worst team in football. They barely beat the Denver Broncos, kind of their most impressive win by kind of a BS kind of leverage call at the end of the game. But they have boat raced a lot of bad teams, right? The Dolphins, the Raiders, the Titans twice, and they have beaten the Chargers, but that was without Joe Alt, Amarian Hampton, Khalil Mack, a lot of injuries in that game for the Bolts, and then they almost lost to Jacoby Brissett at home. That came down to the final second. So this is certainly a team that can be beat. The Los Angeles Rams proved that in Week 4, but certainly a good team that's putting up a lot of points offensively. Now, in terms of the injuries, out this week, okay, the Steelers are not going to be without their strong safety, Deshaun Elliott, who's now being put on IR, and then Daniel Ekuale, the defensive tackle, is on season-ending IR with a torn ACL. And then Charvarius Ward, their number 1 corner, is out this week. He's on IR with a concussion. And then some injuries to watch on the Pittsburgh side of things this week. Isaac Seumalo has a pectoral injury that he is questionable to play with this weekend. Pat Freiermuth injured his quad versus the Packers, but he was able to finish the game last Sunday night, so my guess is he will play. And then Scotty Miller broke his finger last week, did not play in last week's game. He's questionable to go this week as well. And then Indianapolis had a very extensive early week injury report here where multiple players did not practice earlier in the week. We'll see how these injuries progress throughout Week 9 here. But Nick Cross, their starting strong safety, dealing with a shoulder. Josh Downs, their slot receiver, dealing with a hip. Samson Ebukam, one of their defensive ends, dealing with a knee, did not play last week. Matt Goncaves out of Pitt. By the way, their starting right guard has a personal issue right now. Certainly don't know if he's going to be able to go. Kenny Moore's dealing with an Achilles injury. He's their best corner right now. He's had a really good season. Their run-stuffing defensive tackle, Grover Stewart, dealing with a foot injury, and then a couple of other injuries there, more rotational players at receiver and defensive end. But now we can shift our focus to the Colts' defensive and offensive scheme and coaching breakdown. Shane Steichen, one of the better head coaches in the National Football League, in my opinion, certainly from a play-calling perspective. The fact that he has an over 500 record with some of the quarterback play that he has had over the years is really, really impressive in my opinion. He runs a modern pro spread system, one of the best in the spread world in the National Football League today, in my opinion. Does a really good job mixing kind of classic pro-style concepts with kind of the college spread stuff that he also ran a lot with Jaylen Hurts with the Philadelphia Eagles. Does a really good job setting things up for success for his players and for his quarterback. Then on the defensive side of the ball, they have a new defensive coordinator this year, Lou Anarumo, runs a balanced 4-2 system. They base out of nickel, but they run a bunch of different stuff based on the opponent that they play on any given week. Now, the good news about that is that the Pittsburgh Steelers have killed Anarumo over the last 3 years since he, with his previous team there with the Cincinnati Bengals. You'd play his defense twice a year, and over those 6 matchups in those 3 years, the Steelers have averaged over 350 yards of offense per game, and they've averaged over 27 points per game. Okay, so the Steelers certainly have had a lot of success against Anarumo and this defensive scheme over the years, and that's with guys like Matt Canada calling plays, Kenny Pickett at quarterback, Mason Rudolph at quarterback. This is the best Steelers offense we've seen in quite some time, so that should bode well for the Steelers Steelers offense. But the bad news here is that Shane Steichen, their offensive play caller, has absolutely killed Mike Tomlin over the 3 games that he's been an offensive play caller versus the Steelers defense. He really understands how to attack Tomlin's weaknesses inside this defensive scheme. And, his numbers versus Tomlin defenses are even better than the Steelers' numbers against Anarumo defenses, over 375 yards of offense per game and over 30 points per game for Steichen versus Tomlin defenses. So that's certainly not great. And it doesn't help that Indianapolis is coming into this game as the number 1 offense in the National Football League by a pretty wide margin. In all the categories that you look for in team offense, they are top 10 in all of these categories and first in many of them. Points per game, total offense, yards per play efficiency, EPA per play efficiency. They're all number 1, and really their bread and butter is their run game. By the way, their EPA per rush is 3 times higher than the field. Okay, that is how good this rushing offense led by Jonathan Taylor and that excellent offensive line is, and they're good in every single area you can think of, from turnovers to situational ball on third down to red zone efficiency. They are really the real deal, at least through the first 8 weeks of the NFL schedule. You guys can take a look at their offensive personnel. Of course, they're going to be led by Indiana Jones, Danny Dimes himself. Then on the offensive line, when they're healthy, they're one of the best, if not the best, in the National Football League. Bernard Raymond's an excellent left tackle. Quentin Nelson has been one of the best left guards, maybe in NFL history. You got Tanner Bortolini, who's really turned himself into one of the better centers in the National Football League. And then Matt Goncaves and Braden Smith are also very underrated on the right side, even though I would say that's probably their weaker side of the O-line. Then with their skill position players, they've got Michael Pittman Jr., who's an excellent player. You've got Josh Downs, who's an excellent slot, and Alec Pierce is an awesome deep threat. So it's a very complementary skill set in the wide receiver room there. Then tight end Tyler Warren out of Penn State is really their dynamic piece. They move him all around. They put him at fullback. They put him in motion. He's a really difficult guy to guard. He's really good after the catch as well. And then Jonathan Taylor is probably their superstar player at running back. He might be the NFL MVP. He certainly is the front runner for Offensive Player of the Year. Then we can shift over to the defensive side of the ball, and this is where you can take advantage of them a little bit more. Most of these categories, they are in the bottom half of the league, but with takeaways, that's really their bread and butter. They're tied for 3rd in takeaways, which leads to a top 10 scoring defense right now, giving up less than 20 points a game, even though some of their efficiency numbers aren't the best in the world. Their defensive personnel, you're going to be looking at a 4-2 front, so that's going to be 4 down linemen. Leatu Latu is their star edge rusher out of UCLA, drafted 2 years ago. Absolutely fantastic. Broderick Jones is going to have his hands full. Then DeForest Buckner and Grover Stewart, really complementary skill sets there. Buckner is an elite penetrator and disruptor. Grover Stewart, one of the better run defending nose tackles in the league. And then Kwity Paye is their other starting defensive end, a good run defender. Not the best pass rusher, but that's what Latu and Buckner are for. At the off-ball position, Zaire Franklin and Jermaine Pratt. This is probably, I would say, a little bit of a weakness on their team. Pratt got released by the Cincinnati Bengals this year for poor play, and Zaire Franklin, as you can see, PFF has him ranked as the second lowest graded off-ball linebacker in the game. And then you get to the secondary. Kenny Moore is their number 1 right now with Charvarius Ward out, but he mostly plays in the slot, so you can take advantage of their outside corners. Mekhi Blackman and Jonathan Edwards are the guys that have been getting the most snaps on the outside. And then at safety, very solid with Cameron Bynum and Nick Cross, but some of these guys are dealing with some injuries this week, so keep an eye on that. Now, still to come here on the Steelers Talk preview here in Week 9. Keys to victory to take down the Colts and pull off the upset. My scouting report on Indiana Jones, Daniel Jones. Then we'll get into my official score prediction at the end of today's show, so make sure you guys stick around. But before we get to the rest of this week's preview, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Harry's. And I don't have to tell you guys that maneuvering the men's razor space these days is a bit of a nightmare. The quality products are always super expensive, and refills are always ridiculously expensive as well. Then when you try to save a little bit of money, you get stuck with dull razors that irritate your skin. That's exactly why I switched to Harry's Plus, and I haven't looked back since. Harry's Plus has an advanced pivoting system to reach every corner of your face, refined blade tech for a closer, smoother shave, and a weighted metal handle, which is Harry's heaviest handle ever, for added control and comfort. comfort. But I think the best part about Harry's Plus is how affordable it is. Harry's owns their own world-class blade factory in Germany. No outsourcing means no middleman, and because they control the entire process from steel to shelf, they keep costs low and pass the savings on to you, the customer. And if you don't love your shave, Harry's will make it right, no questions asked. The risk-free trial means there's zero downside to giving them a shot today. I actually brought a little bit of an example here. I actually have my Harry's Plus razor with me today, guys, because I want to show you that I actually use this product and I actually love it. It really has a premium feel to it because there's a little bit of heft to this. It's all metal, so you feel like you have all that control at your fingertips, and then also the blades are really, really high quality. They're German engineered. Of course, they make their own blades in-house, and you get that barbershop quality shave without having to completely break the bank, which I think is what every guy is looking for in the men's razor space. So for a limited time only, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10 at harrys.com/chat. This set includes the all-new Harry's Plus razor, one refined 5-blade cartridge, a 2-ounce foaming shave gel, and a travel cover to protect your blades on the go. Just head on over to harrys.com/chat to claim this offer, and after your purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. A big thank you to Harry's for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. My first key to victory here for the Steelers this weekend is to make Danny Dimes uncomfortable. And they did a pretty decent job of this last year when Dimes was still playing for the New York Giants. They played them on Monday Night Football, didn't have a touchdown pass. He threw an interception late in the game in crunch time. He put up some decent production. It's not a terrible game, 63% completions for 260 plus passing, but it certainly wasn't a great day for Daniel Jones. Now, obviously, the Colts personnel and coaching staff, in my opinion, are a lot better now compared to what he was dealing with last year, but he's a very solid quarterback. I can describe him as kind of like a tier 3 franchise quarterback, somebody that if you can put a good roster around him, he can be a pretty darn good player. He can get the ball where it needs to go. He's a pretty good mental processor. He's got good size. He can run a little bit. He's got a good arm, not a great arm, but really the cons with him, guys, is pocket presence. You can really get him on the ground. He has a tough time feeling pressure at times, which is why I think he's benefited so much from playing in front of an elite offensive line. He can be conservative, even though he's been a lot more aggressive this year. And the playmaking upside, especially as a passer outside of structure, I think is a little bit, waning. But he is a good point guard distributor type that has certainly gotten the ball to their various amount of weapons, and they've been doing a great job, giving him options in the passing game. Now, the thing that I want to kind of point to here with his advanced numbers is the big-time throw percentage, which only ranks 29. So that tells me that it's really scheme and talent-driven why he's getting the production that he's getting. I mean, he's second in adjusted EPA per play, second in success rate, third in yards per attempt efficiency. So those are some really high numbers, but I really do attribute the Shane Steichen offense along with some really great offensive line play, a great play-action game. Obviously that run game commands a lot of respect here in Indianapolis. So even though Danny Dimes I don't think is an elite-level quarterback, he is certainly good enough to operate this high-level offensive scheme. And because of that, the Pittsburgh Steelers cannot give him easy answers. Over the entire season to this point, the Steelers have been allowing quarterbacks to get the ball out quickly, which is allowed to negate their pass rush that is super expensive and super talented. And, they got to find ways to get these quarterbacks to hold the ball for longer. And plain and simply, man, the way Danny Dimes wants to beat you is to get the ball out fast, okay? He understands that the longer he holds on to the ball, the less success he's going to have. So the Pittsburgh Steelers need to understand that as well, and they need to make Danny beat him down the field, okay? So you got to take away those underneath routes, and if DJ's going to be beating me in this game, I want him to throw it to Alec Pierce over the top and have him beat a guy one-on-one down the field. I don't want to give up these slants and these flats and all this stuff underneath that the Steelers have been giving up over the last several weeks. I want to play aggressively, and I want to get after Daniel Jones. Then another thing that the Steelers defense needs to do is solve the personnel puzzle. Obviously, you're adding Kyle Duggar to the roster this week, but honestly, I think they're probably going to ramp him up this week, probably not play him. Remember when they signed Jabril Peppers in week 2, he did not play that week. They gave him 2 weeks to ramp up with the team. I think that's probably going to be what happens here. Of course, Darius Slay has been struggling as well. Do you play him? Do you sit him? For me, guys, part of that puzzle is I'm going to be playing Jaylen Ramsey at safety, okay? And the reason for that is you're going up against a really dynamic tight end this week in Tyler Warren, who might be their number one receiving weapon in terms of, their explosives in this offense. So you've got to find somebody somebody that can man him up one-on-one somewhat effectively, especially with how much man the Steelers want to run. And I'm sorry, but I don't want Kyle Duggar in his first game ever with the Pittsburgh Steelers to be lined up versus Warren as this team's strong safety, okay? And I think that the person on this roster that is most equipped to take on an assignment like that is Jaylen Ramsey. He's also over 200 pounds. He's got really long arms. Obviously, he's a lot better in coverage, and he's got better movement skills than Kyle Duggar has. So I think that Jaylen Ramsey gives you your best bet to take away Tyler Warren in this ballgame. And also, I feel comfortable moving Ramsey away from the slot, his normal position, because I like the matchup between Brandon Echols, who can play inside or out, and with Colts slot receiver Josh Downs, who's a little bit smaller, a little bit shiftier. I like the matchup with Brandon Echols in the slot this week. So this is how I would line up if I were head coach Mike Tomlin in the secondary, okay? I would put Joey Porter Jr. on Michael Pittman Jr., use those long arms to take away those short and intermediate routes, jam him at the line of scrimmage. Then I'd put the fast and big Corey Trice Jr. on Alec Pierce. That's if he's healthy enough to go. The Steelers just activated Corey off of IR with the 21-day window there to practice and get back on the active roster. If he makes the team, I would start him over Darius Slay. Again, Echols on Josh Downs in the slot, Ramsey on Warren at strong safety, and then I'd put Jabril Peppers at free safety. Chuck Clark, Juan Thornhill, sit your ass on the bench. Also, get Nick Herbig in the damn game more, all right? Over the last 2 weeks, he's played less than 30 snaps. Last week, less than 25 snaps, and this has been your most productive pass rusher the entire season, and that includes T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith. You got to get 51 on the field more often, and that's a non-negotiable for me. Then we get to Jonathan Taylor, and that's really the main element of this Colts offense that you got to take away. You got to contain JT in this ball game, and I'm not saying you got to completely stop him, but you got to not let him get 3 touchdowns like he's had over the last several weeks, because this guy is having one hell of a season. He's probably the offensive player of the year to this point, and he has just been on a stretch over this last month that is just absolutely unheard of. But a ray of hope here for the Steelers' run defense versus Jonathan Taylor is that they went up against another top 5 running back in the league last week in Green Bay's Josh Jacobs, and they pretty much shut him down. Only 2.5 yards average for just 33 yards on the evening. Now they switched it up, went to Emmanuel Wilson later in the game, and he had some more success, especially after Deshaun Elliott got injured. But I think that the Steelers certainly have the pieces there on the front and then in the linebacker room and then also in the secondary to be able to contain Jonathan Taylor. It's going to be a big part of the defensive game plan this week, and they got to make it happen. Then we get to the offensive side of the ball, and you got to feed Jaylen Warren. And this goes with Kenneth Gainwell as well. I mean, Anarumo defenses really go into 5-man pressure looks with palms and quarters coverages on the exterior and on the perimeter, which leaves the wide open space to the running back right down the middle, okay? And the Steelers really, took advantage of this versus the Bengals in Week 13 last year. Remember, Russell Wilson had all those yards, and most of it was after the catch because they would just dump it off to the running back over the middle of the field because there's no defender there because they were sending 5, and then they had 3 defenders on each side, so that left the middle of the field wide open, and Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren went for over 100 yards receiving. So if they pull that shit again, hit him again with that running back play over the middle. Jaylen Warren can certainly make guys miss as well. He's probably your best offensive player in my opinion, so you got to feed the beast. Then we get to, on the exterior there, and I do think there's some perimeter mismatches that the Steelers can take advantage of for sure. I don't think that the Colts are all that great in terms of outside cornerback talent, and DK Metcalf and Roman Wilson have shown some good things over the last several weeks for sure. DK, it seems like he catches a touchdown every single game. Roman led the team in receiving last week, so I think that these are some mismatches here that Aaron Rodgers can take advantage of, especially if they want to crash down on those little running back type of plays, those swings, those checkdowns to Jaylen Warren. Definitely got to take your shots down the field as well. But then just in general, guys, you got to play the cleaner game, all right? If you make a lot of mistakes, if you have turnovers, if you have penalties, the Indianapolis Colts are going to make you pay for those self-inflicted wounds. In every single game, the Steelers have made less mistakes and they've played the cleaner game. They have won, and every single time they have not and they have killed themselves, they have lost, okay? So the Steelers certainly need to come out and they need to be ready to play. Limit those penalties, limit those turnovers, turn the football over. That's something we haven't seen this defense do in 3 straight games now. We need to get back on that turnover train. But now let's get into score predictions here. And the trends would predict a 30-23 Colts win when you cross-reference the points per game numbers for both sides of the ball for both of these football teams. But for me, I'm going to go with the Indianapolis Colts to win this one, guys. I'm going to say it's a pretty high-scoring game. I think that the Steelers usually do well against Anarumo defenses. And then Steichen obviously kills Mike Tomlin defenses. So I think that the Colts are coming in pretty darn hot. Steelers are home. I certainly think the Steelers have somewhat of a chance to win this game. But, until this defense turns it around, I don't think they're going to get much better, guys. And I think the Colts are going to win. Somewhat close one here, but a 7-point difference here, 38-31. Now it's your turn. Predict the score of Steelers versus Colts for me down there in the comment section. I got 38-31 Colts. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments. And that'll be it for this week's preview here on Steelers Talk. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. We'll have more Steelers coverage for you guys later today, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that later in the evening. But make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.